is called the devil's interval in musicology. That when you play 741 with 528, it creates such an annoying and dissonant energy, diseasing, stressful, that if you continue to listen to it, you could die. They have held the secret knowledge by which the pyramids were constructed based on the math. All of the universe is constructed according to these 9 tones. They knew about them. In fact, they instituted. In fact, it was the Rockefeller Foundation in 1939 that instituted the world's standard tuning. The Western world tunes to a 440 hertz frequency. That when you tune your instrument to that, the F sharp note is 741. Precisely. Not 7.41.1 or 0.2, it's 741. I began to investigate 528 by a divine revelation that was given to a Dr. Joseph Palaio back in 1997, along with the original musical scale, the original solfeggio. It was 6 notes by which the hymn to St. John the Baptist was sung. That was known as the most spiritually uplifting hymn of all the ages. And the 3rd note of that scale was miracle note, 528. So it was ut, re, mi, fa, sol, la, and the 3rd note, mi, miragistorum in Latin, means miracles in English. So from that moment on, I began to think of 528 as something very special, but I had no clue whatsoever what it really was. I had no knowledge whatsoever about it being a love frequency, nor did I have any concept that it was the prophesied key to the house of David. In the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, 22:22, and in book of Revelation 3:6-8, it talks in the end times about an angel from Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, coming and heralding a miraculous key that opened doors that no man can close and closed doors that no man can open. I had no knowledge whatsoever that that was 528. And now we have substantive evidence, massive amounts of evidence. It turned out that when we discovered the original musical scale, there was not just 6, but a total of 9 core creative frequencies to the universe. That is, everything in the universe is made from 9 notes, only 9. And that the first 6 are the solfeggio, and then there's 3 additional ones that form a perfect circle of sound. And that perfect circle of sound looks something like this. If you graph it. So the first 6 notes, 396, 417, 528, 639, 741, 852, was the original solfeggio scale. The 528 that you can see on my left in green is the color green. It's the heart of the rainbow. That's the miracle note from the original solfeggio note, from the original solfeggio scale. And the other note that you see, 741, which is part of nature, is called the devil's interval in musicology. That when you play 741 with 528, it creates such an annoying and dissonant energy, diseasing, stressful, that if you continue to listen to it, you could die. And so that the concept here is interesting. In the world today, we have people who are controlling virtually everything economically, geopolitically. Their agenda has been population manipulation, population control for millennia. They have held the secret knowledge, the ancient music, by which the pyramids were constructed based on the math. All of the universe is constructed according to these 9 tones. They knew about them. In fact, they instituted. In fact, it was the Rockefeller Foundation in 1939 that instituted the world's standard tuning. The Western world tunes to a 440 hertz frequency. That when you tune your instrument to that, the F sharp note is 741. Precisely. Not 7.41.1 or .2, it's 741, which meant that there was a clear, scientifically researched intent, and indeed that's exactly what happened. The 741 A440 link came out of military research in the 1930s to induce psychosocial stress and dis-ease to the max. It was selected that A440 would be the standard tuning for the Western world. In fact, quote, mass hysteria, end quote, could be induced by instituting that frequency. And now you begin to explain why you went from the era of Frank Sinatra, where women would mostly swoon over Frank. Suddenly, Elvis Presley, rioting began. It was scientifically determined for military acoustic warfare research that if you simply used A440 standard tuning, that you could engage about 6% of the population, perhaps, to actually go into this kind of crisis, into this hysteria. And that those people then, especially if they were televised and they were promoted and broadcast, could potentially affect a social, virtually British invasion. Now you begin to reconcile what happened. This information is all in the book of 528. Your heart center, your heart chakra, if you will, which spins in greenish yellow. That's the color of grass in the botanical world. That color of grass is that color because of 528. In fact, you would not have 5,280 feet in a measured mile if it wasn't for 528. You wouldn't have circles. You wouldn't have squares. You wouldn't have any sacred geometry. You wouldn't have pyramids. The pyramids are intimately constructed based on the mathematics of pi, phi. You wouldn't have pi or phi without 528. In other words, you wouldn't have anything without love. You would have nothing. The universe would not exist. 528, in essence, takes you from the heart of your heart, through the heart of the rainbow, which is greenish yellow, to as above, so below, as it is in your own DNA, in chlorophyll, expressing the bounty and the glory of love throughout the botanical world. So it is in the Creator's heart. 528 hertz frequency has been determined to be nearly the precise center of the entire electromagnetic color spectrum. In other words, the center of the rainbow. At the center of the rainbow is the color green. Now you know why there's so much in the botanical world of life, so much green. Because everybody's vibing to the center of the blessing. And this is the first evidence also that we have, because your heart chakra energy vortex center is green, meaning that the center of your heart, now we have definitive evidence, is connected to the center of the universe. How magnificent is that revelation? So this concept also is additionally supported. There's only one number in the entire numbering system, whereby the electromagnetic color spectrum is the same as the sound system. That one number is 528. Both the same in color and sound. 528 hertz frequency. The sad reality is that where we now play our music is in A440. Where did that come from? It used to be 417. A440 came in with the Roman Catholic Church. They suppressed the frequencies. They lost somehow the 152 of the best Gregorian chants, including the hymn to St. John the Baptist, which we've now recovered. That particular hymn was what triggered Dr. Palaio's investigation, looking for those frequencies of vibration by which the music was played. It was known as the most uplifting hymn of all the ages, the most spiritually uplifting hymn. Hymn to St. John the Baptist. It was played to 6 tones. These are those 6 tones. These are those 6 frequencies. And so the A440 is what now is the standard tuning, that if you do the analysis,
You know how I just showed you that the English language is 180 degrees flipped? I mean, you couldn't get farther away before coming back in a perfect circle, back to closer to the original, right? 180 degrees, that's as far as it can get. They did the same thing with the music. If you go A439, you're closer to one of the creator's tones. If you go A441, you're closer to one of the creator's original tones. That's how precisely it has been manipulated. To do what? To shut down the 95% of your brain, particularly the right brain that operates the heart mind for the divine human community. When you go driving your car and your channel on the radio is tuned to a station and you're grooving to the music, you love that music. As you get farther and farther away from the broadcasting tower, that music gets static. You start to lose the signal from the clear channel, broadcast, and it gets staticky. When it gets staticky, you get a little annoyed. But you want to listen to it. You really have a heart for that music, so you continue to listen to it for another 10, 15 miles, and suddenly it becomes so annoying that you just get disgusted. You go, and you shut it off. And if you continue to listen to it, you get sick. That's what we're talking about here. Except you don't even know that you've been listening to the static your whole life. You don't even know what the true resonant frequency is because it has been kept from you. So in other words, the master composer, master conductor of the Universal Orchestra is singing love songs in 5/8, uplifting everything simultaneously. And we're the only species out of tune and accepting static for the clear channel. And let's look at the work of another genius in physics named Hartmut Müller. Müller is Russia's top space-time physicist. He, after years of study, created this, what he calls the standing gravitational wave of the universe. That there's one master gravitational wave out of which this entire double toroidal matrix, harmonics, and mathematics of physical, sacred, geometrical manifestation in the physical reality occurs. That single wave he calls the standing gravitational wave of the universe. And he further digests it as having subwave patterns, what he calls the N6. He says that N6 represents 6 nodes in which all of physical reality are precipitating, crystallizing, manifesting. N6. So here's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 peaks and troughs. You can see obviously how intuitively one would apply the 6 notes to those just to see what you got when you do. He also says something very interesting. He says the structure of this, the basic structure of this, simulates the double helix DNA. Now, do you see something unique popping out at you right here? You're about to see that the double wing structure of your DNA is structurally created into that simplest infinity pattern that Rodin showed us in the map. The entire universe is spinning, just like your DNA, your genetics. And it's spinning as the mathematics is dictating. The numbers themselves are a tip-off. Let me give you the fundamental, the rudimentary origin of the numbers. Here it is. The most important numbers, 3, 6s, and 9s. Again, Tesla, who created Tesla coil. Tesla coils, energy amplifiers. Your DNA is an energy amplifier, a coil, operating by the 3, 6s, and 9s primarily. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, you probably looked at engines or motors, magnets that have been wound with copper wire. When you do that, when you wind the copper, coil the copper around the magnet, it enhances the energy dramatically. That's what your DNA is. It's an antenna to the Creator. Technically, the scientists call it photon-phonon emissions for intercellular communications. That's the primary function of DNA. Phonon is sound. Photon is light. So sound and light signaling